Hi, I'm Stacey Peasley, and you are watching Medfield.tv.
Access to our community.
Welcome to Live Your Passion. I'm your host, Alex Stephen from Life Transforming Treasures. I'm an author, a speaker, and a transformation coach. By sharing my story of raising a successful deaf son and making a life-altering decision, I empower people to transform their lives to one of freedom and fulfillment. On Live Your Passion, our guests share their stories, their challenges, and how they overcame them. And hopefully, you could get some wisdoms from what they're sharing to help you on your journey. Today, I have with me Kimberly Harmon, a very special friend who will share with you her story and how she overcame some of her challenges and where she's at now. Welcome, Kimmy.
Hello, Alex. Thank you so much.
You're
As
very
always,
welcome.
it's such a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah. And just tell us a little bit about, what you do now and
Sure, Alex. Alex, can I share with your audience that you are a speaker, very successful, and a successful author. And what I acknowledge you for the most is your humility and your strong desire to get out there and make a difference. And I really want to thank you for having me on your show.
you're welcome. Yeah.
So, a little bit about me. I am president and CEO of a company called Life Enterprises, where we celebrate life in all you do. And I've had the company for a couple years now, and have a lot of fun reaching out to many individuals. And similar to you, my passion in life is getting out there and making a difference, and working with individuals and helping them realize what their true purpose is.
Yes, and I know we met, a little while back, and we spoke, and the more we speak, we find out that we have so much in common. So it's really a gift to have you on the show and to
Thank you.
share some of your story. I know it's a short time to share so much, and I know you will share, some of the most important things that would help people in the audience.
Thank you, Alex.
So really appreciate you being here. So Kim, tell us a little bit, growing up, some of your experiences and how things were for you as a child.
Sure. Growing up, I grew up in what I would call a very unsettling environment, and an environment of constant change. And I say that because throughout my childhood, I was faced with many areas of adversity, Alex. And there were many challenges that I had to learn how to overcome. So if I could share with you and
Sure.
share with the audience, it probably started when I was an early teenager. And my family had found out that my mom was facing a heroin addiction. And that was very difficult. I was about 12 years old back then, living with my mother, living with my younger sister. And it was a time of much uncertainty in my life. My mother was in and out of rehab, in and out of different therapies, and we were constantly moving from family member to family member, and yet at the same time having to function in school and having to really be that student. And that was difficult back then.
It was difficult back then, and your mom had to provide for you and your sister, your sibling, because your dad was not your biological father was not living with you. So you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure.
When you're probably around 5 or 6 growing up.
Sure. So when I was very, very young, my parents divorced, and my biological father, when I was about age 3, had removed himself from our lives. So my mother for many years was a single mom, and she worked 2 jobs, always growing up, and did the best she could to provide for us. And shortly after she was alone for a few years, she had remarried to my stepfather. My stepfather, however, growing up was in and out of jail, and I had shared that with you. So for many of our weekends, while my friends at school were doing fun things with their families, or they were just really being children, our Sundays were spent at the local prison, visiting him, and so it was not that easy growing up, Alex.
What was some of the emotions you experienced as a child at that tender age, growing up with a stepfather who was in and out of prison, and your mom having to work to provide for you and your sister?
Sure. Some of the emotions that I really remember, and still sometimes go back to, because sometimes we still go back to those memories and those feelings of childhood, were betrayal, anger, hatred, uncertainty,
but
pain.
Pain, a lot of pain, I could imagine. And growing up at that age, you didn't know what to do in terms of getting help. So, tell the audience a little bit about your experience and some of the things that you did.
Sure.
I know you said instead of turning to God, you sort of ran from God. Those sort of experiences.
I did. And Alex, that happened several years after my mom had passed away. I was 14 when my mom had passed away from contracting hepatitis B, and back then in the 80s there was the Delta virus that was brand new, and the physicians weren't sure how to treat it. And my mom died in the ICU. And then right after that, my biological father, who had not been with us since about the age of 3, all of a sudden showed up. And then my sister and I went to live with my biological father. And shortly after that was when the sexual abuse started happening with him. And I can remember as a teenager feeling that I didn't know what was happening in my life, and thinking that how could this be? How could I lose my mom at such an early age? And then how could I be placed in a very unsafe situation? And for the longest time, Alex, I did not share any of what I was going through with anybody. I kept it all inside. And I didn't have one person in my life that I felt comfortable enough to share it with. So I kept it inside. And for me, my sanctuary was going to school. And that was where I put all my energy, and I excelled, and I sort of forgot about everything.
When you were in school.
When I was in school. And in school, I did well. I was popular. I was tri-captain of the cheerleading squad, and I had a lot of friends. And everybody at school thought that I was happy because they always saw the happy Kim. And I believed that I selectively and consciously blocked all of those really bad traumatic experiences out of my life. Until I was probably until I was in my later adulthood, when I started realizing that I had held on to so much of that pain that it was affecting my relationships.
And even going back even younger than that, I remember you said you visited your mom where she worked. Tell us some of that, the experience there and how that made you feel.
Sure. So when my sister and I were growing up, my mother always worked 2 jobs, and one of her second jobs was bartending in the evening. And that's how she made that extra money to feed us and to send us to school and all of that. So I can remember visiting her at work. And most of the time it was in the evening or it was on a Sunday afternoon. And the memories that I have of that were being in the bars, because it was always in a bar room, so it was always a very tough environment. And, I look back, Alex, and I think, wow, how did we stay so safe at such a young age? Because it was a very tough environment full of alcohol, drugs, fighting. There were many, many fights that my sister and I would watch. And it was a very scary time for us.
And as young girls, you had to go through that. You didn't have any choice. And did you all go to any family members? Did you all reach out for help, your mom or you or your sister?
No, Alex, we came from a family where the philosophy was what happens in the house stays in the house.
Stays in the house.
And that was how we were brought up. And you just didn't talk about what was happening. And for me, there was so much shame. I was full of shame and unworthiness as a kid and as a teenager that I guess in some way I just accepted it, and I accepted that was the way that it was supposed to be. So we never reached out to any family members for help.
Never reached out to anybody. So you live in this sort of isolation, so to speak. Yeah, and you didn't even turn to God for help because it was so painful.
It was very painful.
Yeah.
And Alex, I went to a Catholic school, so I was brought up in a very traditional Catholic school where we attended Mass on a regular basis. We had religion as a subject on a regular basis. So I had that faith foundation, but it was too hard for me to go there. And I can remember when my mom was in the ICU. She was in the ICU for about 2 months. It was a long summer. And every single night I would be on the 3rd floor in the chapel praying, and I would be down on my knees, and I would ask God, please take me. Please keep my mother from my sister. I will do anything if you take me instead. Wow. And that was every night for 2 months. And then he took my mother. And it was very, very hard and very, very painful. And that was when I turned my back. And I was so angry at him, and so angry at him for not listening to me and saying, how could you do this to me? It's not fair.
Yeah. Wow. Tough environment to be in. And then, as a child, you don't know, what to do, what choices you have, and you're not conversing with your relatives or even teachers at school because you're trying to keep this to yourself. And somewhere as a child, you're blaming yourself without knowing. So with your dad, when you went to live with your biological dad, your mom died, and now, I don't know if it was through the courts or what happened that you had to go and live with him because you all were underage. And, your stepfather was violent towards your mom. Now you went to your biological father, now he's abusive to you. So how did you get out of that situation? How long did it wasn't too long, but you were growing up then and you got some more courage, so to speak.
Shortly after my mom had passed away and my biological father came to visit us, it was not through the courts. It was my sister and I who had wanted to go be with him because, all growing up, Alex, I didn't have a father. And I didn't have that father figure in my life. Right. Instead, I had a stepfather who was verbally abusive to my mother. He was very physically abusive to my mother. And it was very scary. So there was a part of me that had always wanted to know what it was like to be Daddy's little girl. Wow. So that's why I went. And, he hadn't seen me since I was 3. So here I was, now a 14-year-old who was turning into a young lady, and
But you got the courage. You got the courage to go and seek help.
I did.
You were around 16 or something, and you decided that something is wrong here.
Right.
So you were getting that sense, and you got the courage to go out there and talk to someone. If you could share with us what that was like.
Sure. So that lasted for about 2 years, Alex. And in that period, before I was able to find the courage to get help, I had lived in a world of complete darkness. And I had also in that time developed an eating disorder, and I was diagnosed with bulimia. And I can remember coming home from school and having a Diet Coke and 6 saltines, and then I would be in the bathroom purging because my self-esteem was so low back then. And I had gone through that, and I had gone through different counselors that my stepmother had brought me to, but I didn't connect with anyone. I was not connecting with anyone, and I was not able to open up back then. And then there was this one counselor that I was brought to where I instantly felt a level of comfort with him, and I felt trust with him. And it was he that I started to open up and really share what was going on. Because again, I had blocked everything out, and I was not dealing with it.
And was no fault of yours.
No.
As a child growing up, this was a situation that you were in. So it's good that you had the courage and you had that connection with this one counselor. So tell the audience, people who might be looking, to see how you came over this, how did the counselor handle it? What was the process that he used?
Yeah, it was a beautiful process, and I remember quite a bit of it. It was a process of bringing me to a place of complete worthiness and making sure that I was number one in my life, and making sure that I was safe. That was a big piece of it. I can remember when I shared the news with him, I was instantly taken out of the house. I mean, instantly. It was within hours. I wasn't allowed to go back in the house. And I had gone to live with an aunt and uncle, and it was a transition from an unsafe environment to a very safe environment right away. And then I continued to work with him for quite a while. And my self-esteem started to come back again, and my happiness started to come back. And I started to really understand that I was a victim, and that I was stuck in that victim mode for so long.
So long. Yeah. But he explained to you that it was not your fault.
He did.
And he tell us a little bit about, that conversation, with what went on with your family.
With my entire family?
No, well, I mean, he explained to you that it was not your fault and explained to you what happened with your family to have you in this situation.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, he did a good job back then explaining it, Alex. But for me, the epiphany came a couple years ago only, when I realized that all of us are created in this world. And we come into this world, Alex, with what I call this original heart. And our hearts are so pure when we're born.
Right.
And they're so full of these beautiful, unique gifts. And then what happens is, as we start to develop and go through life, we're hit with all these things that society puts on us. And all of a sudden, even though our parents, they don't intentionally want to hurt us, but it does happen, or there are people outside the family that hurt us. And what I realized, Alex, is that your heart becomes frozen. And for years, it can remain frozen, where all those beautiful, precious gifts inside, they become lost.
They become lost. So share with us, Kimmy, how you came out of this situation. Because, that was then how, things happened to you, things that you had no control over, but you came out of it and it took you some time. So I'd like you to share with the audience some of the things you did on your own to reach where you are now.
Sure. There's many things that I
Many
did.
things,
There's many
yes.
things, Alex. So I would
Yes,
say
some.
I would say that it is a combination of things.
Right, yeah.
I think the first thing is that I took responsibility for myself, and that is something that everybody should take very seriously, because we have to. It's our life. And people can guide you, they can coach you, but you have to be willing to stand up for yourself. And I did that. And I did it in many ways. I became much closer to God, and I've shared that with you. And that faith foundation that I had as a child, I learned to grab onto it. And I grabbed onto it, and I just let my heart be filled up with so much divine love. and that for me was everything. That was actually at the center of everything.
Yeah, running to God when we're in trouble instead of running from Him.
Absolutely.
And could you tell us a little bit, some of the other things you did, I know, like you said, the people around you, you started to surround yourself, because I want the audience to hear the things that you went through that could probably
Sure.
help them in their journey.
Sure. I started surrounding myself with really good people. And I created what I call a circle of light. And in that circle of light, I brought in people that believed in life-giving relationships, where you have that true reciprocity of the giving and the receiving, and you have a nice flow. That's one of the things that I did. So any negativity or anyone that was bringing me down in my life, I just let them go. It was like cutting an umbilical cord and saying, thank you, I honor what you have given me, but I don't need that anymore. And filling my life with people of true love. That was just one of the things. And then I also brought into meditation. I do a lot of meditating. I do a lot of praying, Alex.
And those help you to be where you are now.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, so
Without a doubt.
those were how you get here, and you did a lot of reading too, a lot of reading, self-help.
A lot of reading.
In addition.
A lot of reading. If I could share with you the story of when my son was about 6 years old, and I had the children at the library, and they were running through the library. You know how a six and a 4-year-old do, and they're just running, and I'm running after them. And I'm running down the aisle, and all of a sudden a book fell down right in front of me. And I picked up the book, and I remember holding on to it, and as soon as I picked up the book, I felt something right away, whether it was an energy vibration, I don't know what it was, but I felt something. And I flipped open the cover of the book, and I thought, wow, this sounds really interesting. And it was a book by Dr. Brian Weiss, and it was a book about spirituality and God. And that book completely brought me back on my path.
Yeah.
So I believe that there are no coincidences. I believe that there are only what I call God winks. So I picked up the book, and I brought the book home. I checked it out, and I read that book. And that was another turning point for me coming back into my faith.
Yeah. And the thing is, Kimmy, you did not stay where you were, in a situation that you had no control over. But you took responsibility, and you said you'll change your life. And you took steps. And I'm sure it was not an easy process, but you stuck to it. I know now you meditate a lot, you pray a lot, and you consult, before making decisions. You discern is the word I'm looking for. So that's pretty good. So share with us where you are now in your life. After being through this, horrible childhood, took steps to get where you are now. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how things working out for you now.
Sure. Now they're good, Alex. Now they're good because those original gifts, I'm able to use those gifts where they were hidden and locked away for so long. So now things are good. When I was younger, even in my early adulthood, I struggled with relationships. And I really struggled with forming close relationships and letting those bonds strengthen with individuals. And now I have this true sense of freedom where I'm able to develop those close relationships or intimate relationships. And it's brought me so much further in my career. And I had advanced as a CEO over the years, as a healthcare CEO, and found myself in very successful roles. But it wasn't until a few years ago that I realized that I wasn't happy, Alex. So it's the happiness that came back.
Yeah, it's following your passion.
It's completely following your passion.
Following your passion.
Right.
And that's what you're doing now, because I know you're in the process and probably soon will be releasing your book, if you want to tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. The forthcoming book is called Fanatical Forgiveness, 7 Pathways to Infinite Harmony, Freedom, and Love. Who doesn't want that in their life?
I'll take a copy.
Thanks, Alex. And it is my first book, and it truly is where I'm supposed to be. And I'm really excited that after going through so much, I've experienced that love is the true path to forgiveness.
Yes, I'm talking about your book on forgiveness. I know in terms of how you got here, where you are now, in this space, you're happy, you're contented, and your life is filled with love with your kids and your friends and, you know, everything around you in your circle, as you said. But share with us a little bit on your journey with forgiveness. Some of the examples with your mom and dad, so people will understand the power of forgiveness.
That's a really great question, Alex. And they say you teach best the most you need to learn about yourself.
Right.
And I realized that because I was the most unforgiving person growing up. Even as an adult, I was the most unforgiving person. And I struggled around the area of self-forgiveness because there were a lot of things that I blamed myself for. And I thought that I had put myself in those certain situations that caused me so much pain. And I was so angry at my mother. I was angry at God. I was so angry at my father that I could not forgive.
But who was getting hurt?
I was.
Okay.
It was me.
You was getting hurt, and you realized that.
I realized that, Alex. And, you know, I realized it was 2008 when I had attended a transformational forum weekend, and there were over 250 participants in the room, and we had a certain exercise to work on. And I had worked on the exercise, and we all came back into the room, and it was an exercise on realizing where the block was in your relationships. And I had a major epiphany when I was working on this, and I realized that the reason why I couldn't get close to my ex-husband and the reason why I couldn't get close to many people was because of the abuse from my father. And we're all sitting back in our seats after the break, and the forum leader had asked for a volunteer. And Alex, I have no idea how my hand went up. All of a sudden, my hand went up like this, and I was standing on the stage in front of 250 people, and he worked with me in having a complete breakthrough with my relationship with my father. Wow. And when I went home after that weekend, I wrote a letter to my father. And I still have the letter. I kept a copy of it. And I forgave him for everything. And I remember putting the letter inside the envelope, and I went to the post office. I found out where he lived, and I mailed it. Wow. And I let it go. And I remember putting my hand inside and watching it drop in, and I had an instant sense of freedom, complete freedom. And I didn't receive a response back, but it's okay because I realized, Alex, that I needed to do that for me. It was all for me.
Exactly, and that's what I want people to get. The forgiveness is for you. It's not for the person who hurt you. It will free you up, and you could go ahead with your life, and that's what Kimmy did.
And then it also, I had so much difficulty going to the cemetery to visit my mother's grave. And I would not go. My aunt would go, my grandmother would go, and they would put flowers, and I would hear comments for years because I was of driving age by then. And they would say, how come you don't go? And I couldn't. I had so much pain around the loss that I couldn't get myself to go. So it was having the breakthrough with my father that also gave me the breakthrough in my relationship with my mother. And then I was able to go to the cemetery and put the flowers down. And I was able to really bring in so much gratitude for what happened. So instead of being that victim, you know, which we all do, we say, I can't believe that happened to me. That's not fair. Why is that happening? And I was able to really focus on the beautiful gifts that I was given in my life, because it was through going through those very hard challenges that I became who I am today.
Yeah, exactly. Enjoy the journey.
Absolutely.
It's easier said than done.
Much easier said than done.
But and you forgive your mom, you forgive your dad. And I tell people the key, especially when I coach people, whatever solution they're looking for, they're all different. But the key I see in all cases is you must have an attitude of gratitude. That's the first thing, and you must learn to forgive. You could have how much education, how much opportunities, and if you don't have those key values, it will keep you back, as you have experienced. So once you did this in all areas of your life, you develop this attitude of gratitude, and you're seeing it blossoming for you. So what are some of the things you're doing now, Kimmy, that where you are now?
Sure.
In terms of, leaving corporate and really following your passion.
Sure. And leaving the corporate world was hard because it was safe in a way, Alex. And I think you can relate to that.
I did that too. It's not easy. Like you said before, it's like cutting the umbilical cord.
It is.
And it's a lot of challenges. Nobody's saying it will be easy, but it'll be worth it.
It'll be worth it,
Yeah.
sure. So what I'm doing now is I'm authoring my first book, and I have two parallel paths that I'm taking right now, Alex. And one is creating a ministry where I can get out there in communities and get out in the world and share the message of forgiveness with churches, religious organizations, women's groups. That's one path.
Right.
And then the other path is working with and coaching female C-level executives and teaching them and sharing with them that by going back to the origin of their original hearts in their leadership, they can become very highly effective leaders.
Right.
And they have the ability to change our world.
And with all that, you still do nursing, or you teach.
I have an adjunct clinical faculty position at a local university, and that is my love. I am a nurse by trade. I will always be a nurse. It has been my biggest passion. And so I still do that, and I really enjoy being with the students because it's launching them into their passion.
Yeah. So you have all these balls you're juggling, and you still have two children. I know your son play a lot of sports.
Baseball, football.
Yeah. So and you still have this big smile on your face.
Thanks,
so
Alex.
things going well for you. So Kimmy, it's been a journey for you. There's been a lot of pain, a lot of emotion, anger, shame, resentment. But by going back to God and building that part of your life, forgiving the people in your life, having gratitude, you are where you are now. So I like to ask you if there's anything you like to leave the audience with, some nuggets that could help them on their journey. It might be a different challenge that they're going through, but some of the things that you did, they could adopt in their life journey to help them through their challenges.
I can think of 3 pieces of wisdom that I'd like to share, Alex, based on some personal experiences. And the first one is finding the courage. And it is so important to do that. And the courage is one of those precious gifts that we all have that becomes either clouded over or frozen over. So finding the courage to go get help.
Right.
And that includes leaning on another, because Alex, we were not created to do this by ourselves. And the finding of another that helps us really maintain that courage could be a priest, it could be a minister, a spiritual director, it could be a teacher, it could also be a family member, somebody that you really feel comfortable with and that you trust, where that person loves you unconditionally. So that would be the first one. And then I would also say for me, what has been very, very important is honoring your pain. And that can be the hardest. It can be the hardest because nobody wants to go there. So when you've identified those pockets of pain from your childhood or experiences that have happened in your adult life, it's very difficult to go there. But by truly respecting that, it opens up a world of freedom for you. And it's never too late, Alex. So at any age, we can find and learn how to hold those areas of hurt with us.
And what's the third point you wanted to share?
The third one, yes. The third one is that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. That we absolutely have got to take a stand for ourselves, take it serious, and take action.
Yeah, and that's a big one. You have to take action, and that's what you did. you just didn't stay, you know, it's hurtful, it's painful, shameful, all those things, but you have to pull yourself up by the bootstrap. And it's very, very important to ask for help. You know, sometimes we want to keep these things to ourselves, and what it does, it stifles us. It really cramps our lifestyle. And ask for help. You know, get the courage to ask for help. Identify your pain. You don't want to stay in the pain and feel sorry for yourself. Like you said, you have to take action. You have to get up. And when you take action and you make a commitment, the universe moves to help you. The right people, right opportunities, right ideas will come. And, you know, I think that's very important.
It does, Alex. It's when you make the commitment, I believe that your words create your world. So you make the commitment, and then you're right, things start to change. And it's like you're taking the blinders off, and all of these opportunities around you and these possibilities that have been there, that have been around you screaming, hello, I'm over here. I'm right in front of you. You're not paying attention to me. I'm over here. We actually start to see them when you do that.
When you do
Yes,
that.
and then your entire world starts to change and shift. And it becomes so beautiful.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. But you have to take the action. You have to get the courage, you know, to get out there and talk to people and look for help. So, Kim, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we close? Where could they get in contact with you?
They can log on to the website at www.kimberlymarieharmon.com. There is a free gift for the audience, Alex, so if they'd like to access that, they can go to the website to find that.
Get that.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's great. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story
Thank
with
you,
us.
Alex,
I really appreciate
very much.
you
Thank you,
coming.
Alex. Thank you.
Again, this is Alex Stephen. Thanks so much for looking at Live Your Passion. And what I usually do for my book, Inspirational Life Quotes, I would like to share the quote of the day, and the quote for today is from Lao Tzu, and it says, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." So relevant. So this is for my Inspirational Life Quotes book, and which is on Amazon, and Courage in Our Hearts is also on Amazon. Our family's life story, and our accompaniment to that book is Discover Your Inner Treasure, and this is my lovely granddaughter on the cover. So it's on Amazon, and you could always reach me. I have a lot of resources to support you in this conversation at alexstephen.com. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.
Production support provided by Medfield.tv. Access to our community.
Hi, my name is Toby Burrell. I am president of the Medfield Lions Club. The Medfield Lions Club is one of 46,000 Lions clubs that have 1.3 million members worldwide. That makes the Lions the largest service club organization in the world. Where there's a Lions Club in the community, problems get smaller and communities get better. Locally, the Medfield Lions are involved in two primary missions. We raise money to benefit eye disease research, and we also raise money to benefit local Medfield charities. No doubt you've seen us in town wearing our distinctive yellow vests, raising money for eye disease research. Our single largest fundraiser each year is the Christmas tree sale. Every penny of the proceeds goes to charities such as the Medfield Food Cupboard, the Medfield Animal Shelter, and scholarships for graduating Medfield High School seniors. We sponsor the Seniors Luncheon at Christmas as well as the Chowderfest contest each year. All the proceeds from these very popular events go to benefit the Council on Aging. Interested in volunteering? As a member of the Medfield Lions Club, you'll be joining a group of service-minded men and women who are doing local volunteer work to benefit Medfield right now. We are your friends, we are your neighbors, we are local Medfielders, and we would love to have you join us. For further information about membership, please call me, Toby Burrell, at 508-359-5210, or you can email me at tobster9@aol.com. Or check us out on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Lions Clubs. Thank you.